Today we're going to expand on demand theory a bit and look at more of the consumer side. All right, so we're going to be focusing in on consumer choices and how they make their decisions. So when we going all the way back to when we discussed economics, we said that one of the biggest issues with economics and why it's kind of around is because people have unlimited wants, but they have scarce resources. They have scarce time, but especially scarce money. So let's start out by looking at consumer choices. So with consumer choices, they have consumption possibilities. And consumption possibilities is all things that we can afford to buy. All right, so you can buy 5 units of X, 10 units of Y, 3 units of Z, and so forth. Now, to figure that out, the starting point is really the budget line. So we have limited income, but we have unlimited wants. Right? There's a lot of things that we want. So, but because of that limited income, we are only able to satisfy a certain number of these wants. And so we have limits on our consumption, which is how much we can actually purchase. So let's look at an example of a budget line here. So with our budget line, we're going to look at a simple example. And we are going to assume that the only two things you can buy are apples and oranges. An apple costs $2 and an orange costs $1. And then now you also have $10. So with a budget constraint, it's the maximum combination of goods that you can buy. So with it, we are assuming that you're spending all of your money. So if you have $10, you're going to spend all that $10. So if we look at this, we're going to want to find where the different combinations of the two that we can purchase while spending all $10. And so let's look if we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the income left here, the idea is that you want to spend all of your income. So for example, if apples are $2 each and you don't buy any, then you still have all $10. If apples are $2 each and you have one, then 2 out of that 10 is being taken out, so you have $8 left. So when we go through this, let's see. So if we don't buy any apples, we'll have $10 left. Oranges cost $1 each, and so we can buy 10 oranges. All right, so there's 1 point on your budget constraint. If we buy one apple, we'll have $8 left, so we can buy 8 oranges. And then we can buy 6, 4, 2, and 0. So this is our budget constraint. It's the maximum combination of the goods that we can buy. This is what we are limited to. So anywhere inside this budget constraint in here, right, inside the budget line, yeah, you can buy there, but you're not going to be spending all your money. So for example, let's say we bought 2 apples and 2 oranges. 2 apples cost $4 plus 2 oranges cost $2. So at this point, we're spending $6. So we're just not spending all of our money. Anywhere outside, however, over here in the right portion, we cannot attain. So for example, let's just say 5 apples and 5 oranges, so right here. At this point, so 5 times 2 for the apples is 10, plus another 5 for the oranges is 15. Okay, so we can't afford that. So that's a look at our budget constraint. The next part that we have to look at is preferences. So now, when we look at preferences, we talked about this pretty extensively with demand and elasticity, but when it comes down to preferences, the main thing that we look at is our total utility. Now, as a reminder, utility is a measure of happiness or satisfaction, where the basic idea is the more utility you have, the happier you are. Right? So your goal in life is to obtain more utility. And so this is a big thing that comes up with people when it comes to working, because your number one goal in life is not to get as much money as you can. Okay, it's not. You always heard money can't buy happiness. However, money can buy you things that will make you happy. So you need to figure out, how much money you need to make you the happiest. And so that's where that comes in. So total utility is the total amount of happiness or total amount of satisfaction that you get from something. All right, whether it's 100 units, 500 units, so forth. Marginal utility, and this is, as we talked about marginal before, it's the additional utility you get from an additional unit of something. So let's say you are eating little Dunkin' Donuts munchkins. All right. So marginal utility is going to be the utility you get from just eating the first one, just eating the second one, just eating the third, the fourth, and so forth. Not 1 versus 2, 3, 4, and 5, first, second, third, fourth. Now, when we did demand, we talked about this idea of diminishing marginal benefit, which goes hand in hand with diminishing marginal utility. And so what that is saying is that the more you get of something, the less additional happiness you get from it. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you're not getting less happiness. I'm saying you're getting less additional happiness. And so the idea of just thinking in terms of food again. So when it comes to the little munchkins, the first one you eat, okay, that's the one you value the most. All right, that's when you're hungriest. That's when the taste is freshest. That is when you get that most satisfaction. The second one, you're still going to enjoy. You're still hungry. All right, so your utility is still going to go up. However, it's not going to go up by as much. And the reason is that you're not as hungry. That initial wow factor from the taste isn't there anymore. And then if you keep on going, each additional munchkin that you eat, your utility may keep going up, but it's going to go up at a smaller and smaller pace. All right, so let's look at this. So here we have a table that looks at Lisa and looks at her utility of 2 goods. So in the first corner we have, or in the first column we have the quantity. In the second we have the total utility, which is the utility of all the units. And in the third we have the marginal utility. So for example, you can see that her total utility is going up the more times she goes to the movie. Okay? So 1 movie she has 50, 2 she has 90, for 3 she has 122, and so on and so forth. Now the marginal utility, which is going to be your change in total utility divided by your change in quantity, all right, it's going to be getting smaller and smaller. So if we look at this, when she goes from having 0 to 1 movie, her total utility goes from 0 to 50, so it goes up by 50. So the marginal utility of that first movie is 50. Right? So by going to that first movie, she gets 50 additional units of happiness, of satisfaction. Now when she goes from 1 to 2, her total utility goes from 50 to 90. So if she goes to that first one, she's getting that 50. Now if she wants to go to that second one, well, what she's really going to get is going to be 40 additional units of utility, from 50 to 90. Okay? So the second one is bringing her 40 units of happiness, of satisfaction. And you can see that the more and more movies that she goes to, the smaller her marginal utility is. And the same happens over here for her consumption of sodas. Okay? So what does that look like? If you're looking at it here, when it comes to utility, you see, yes, your total utility will be increasing. Now, it may get to a point where it'll dip down. So, for example, if you're talking about soda, if you drink, one soda in a day, two sodas a day, three sodas in a day, eventually you're going to get to the point where drinking more sodas makes you worse off because it starts to make you sick. But for the most part, we're assuming that it's going up. But what you can see is that over in this left-hand side, the utility is going up at smaller and smaller amounts for each additional unit. And that's the marginal utility. And so the marginal utility is going lower and lower. Okay. So that really sets the stage as far as budget lines and utility.